Carolina back to square one. And honestly, we could break down the stats. We could say this, that, and the third. But realistically, man, this team is just inconsistent. And that has been the issue all year long. You look at the highest of highs from the season were just 48, 72 hours ago. And that huge win against Duke. But again, if we're honest, it wasn't like Carolina went in there and out punked Duke. It was a game that they hung around in. Caleb Wilson was fantastic. He kind of hit a wall late. And again, tonight, slow start by Caleb, kind of had some weird injury, comes back. And it's just, I mean, my thoughts are scrambled here, to be completely honest with you. It's just at this point, it's so difficult, one, to trust this team, and two, to enjoy watching this team. That game, Miami just outdogged them. It's as simple as that. And whatever side of the fence you're on, whether you say, hey, if you want to make excuses for the team, you can make excuses and say, okay, look, it was an emotional letdown. These happens after big rivalry games. Good teams lose on the road in conference play. They just were lackadaisical. They just were tired. It was a travel, a short turnaround. So many excuses you could make for this team. And if that's what you've been doing all year, you're probably doing the same now. And if you've been frustrated with this team, you have a valid point. Because realistically, the ups and downs of this season, to me, have been the exact same thing we've seen out of this Carolina basketball program for 5 years now under Hubert Davis. It's high highs and low lows. And while this might not be the lowest point of Carolina basketball this season, a road loss to Miami, look at the ACC standings. This team currently sits sixth in the ACC. And while the ACC, yes, is better than what it was last year, the ACC is not some gauntlet. It is not. If you watch the rest of college basketball and you watch what's going on in the Big 10 and the Big 12, if you want to have an argument about the SEC, the ACC, and the Big East, that's fine. But let's call a spade a spade. The ACC is not the ACC of Duke with K and Bennett at Virginia and Larinaga with his years at Miami. It's a different ACC. It's a ton of first year head coaches. And I think what you saw tonight was a first year head coach who knows exactly what he's doing, knows how to create a game plan, have his players execute it. And the game plan was simple: outpunk Carolina, because they're not a team, in my opinion, that when their toughness is checked, and we did a video a while ago on this earlier this season, when their toughness is checked, sometimes they bow out. And tonight, the credit to them in the first, credit to Carolina in the first half for hitting all those 3-point shots, because they could have been down double digits if they weren't shooting the three as well as they did. And then it tapered off in the second half, and you live and die by that three. And if we do look at the numbers, Miami made 3 points, three pointers tonight. Three. That's it. So there wasn't a barrage of threes from Miami. Carolina doubled them up. They went 8 for 27. I think in the first half it was 7 for 15 or 7 for 13. At one point they were 53% from the three. North Carolina never led in this game. So now that's 2 games now that they've played, one being a win over Duke, one being a loss in Miami, that they've led for 0.4 seconds. I mean, it's truly just, I don't understand what the deal is with this group. And I get fatigue probably absolutely was in play. And if you look at the minutes from other players, guys like Zayden High, who probably had his 7 minutes tonight, that might have been his most minutes in a conference game this season. And to Hubert's credit, he went deep, probably because he had no choice. But guys like Evans and Bogovac, who, if they catch and shoot, they're good. They're good 3-point shooters. Maybe even great 3-point shooters if they're catching and shooting. The problem is they do not give you anything else. Luka just weird turnovers, falling down on the ground, trying to shoot step back threes. If they're in their pocket, catch and shoot threes, fantastic. Take them. Neither one plays defense. The Miami guards were having a field day with them today. And if we go back to these team stats, so let's look at it. Miami out rebounds North Carolina only by 6, not a huge difference, but they were out rebounded. Points off turnovers, 10 points off the turnovers for Miami. Miami 8 points in transition. And the real factor here, which is a dog stat, and we just talked about this on the Kansas Arizona game last night, 46 points in the paint for Miami to 28 for UNC. You just got out punked. I mean, that's in essence what happened tonight, and that's where it is just, it's becoming frustrating. It's becoming annoying at this point that this team just, they want to be a light switch. They want to turn it on and off. And you're now coming against competition. You don't have that luxury to do it. The defense continues to be atrocious. Now, it was much better in the second half, only giving up 32 points. But again, 43 points given up in the first half. And so many of the people wanted to write off the end of the Syracuse game when they're up 32 and that lead's cut down to 7, oh, they're checked out. They're moving on to the next game. That's not what top 10 teams do in the country. That's not what consistent blue bloods do. A perfect example is the Kansas game last night. Their best player on that team is out, Darren Peterson. And you see that team in that game, if you were able to watch it, they fought. They're undersized, undermanned. They don't have extreme depth going for that Kansas team. These guys are being basically pieced together quickly, a ton of roster turnover, and that team has gotten significantly better over the course of the year. But at the end of the day, if you watch it, they just fought. They just fought as hard as they possibly could. And there's guys on this Carolina team who are not fighting 110%. And you can see it. And at this point, again, if you've been on the fence to make excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse, that's fine. You're probably going to do the same again tonight for this game. Oh, it was an emotional letdown. Oh, this is ridiculous. Look at them. They beat Kansas, Kentucky, and Duke this year. They're having a great season. They're blah, 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 blah. But the truth of the matter is, and the one last thing I'll bring up too after this is from Joe Luinardi on the bracketology right now, because Carolina was projected on a 4 seed. He says if they lose, they're going to go back down to 5. But here's what Joe says. Once again, North Carolina is riding the wave of being North Carolina. A year ago, the Tar Heels were the last team selected into the field despite the worst quad 1 record in the history of at-large bids. This season, they're knocking on the door of top 10, just gained a coveted 4 seed despite a profile that's at least a line or two worse than that, meaning they should really be a 5th or 6th seed. It's a stark example of the difference between what yours truly thinks and our bracketology projections, which are always what we think the selection committee will do. It isn't that UNC isn't a bad team or can't make a deep turning run. We simply don't see a number 24 net ranking or number 48 defensive efficiency. That was before tonight. In the resume of a top 4 seed. Most of the time, I think blind resumes ignore valuable context. In this North Carolina team case, a little blindness couldn't hurt. And I think that's honest. If this was not North Carolina on the chest, and people, I think, genuinely watch every single game and watch all the other games that are going on in the country from the Big 12, some of these SEC teams, some of these Big 10 teams, and even some of the big hitters like UConn and St. John's out of the Big East, you don't look at this North Carolina team and say, yep, that's a Final Four team. They're too inconsistent. And to bank on them getting to a Final Four, that means you need a 2-week stretch against the best competition they would have seen all season long over the course of those 4 games, and that they're consistently going to play good enough to get into that bracket. I don't get it. I don't know what to make of this anymore. And again, it's just the inconsistencies. It's the up and down, up and down. Every point you have to say Hubert's doing a good job and this is a top 10 team, you can make another point that this is not really going well right now. And the losses that they're getting, they're 2 teams who are not in the field currently in Stanford and Cal. SMU, you gave up almost 100 points. And then Miami tonight, you just got out-punked. And you now find yourself 6th in the ACC, the 8th most expensive roster in college basketball. $13 million in NIL, cannot find themselves 11 games into the ACC in the top 4. In the top 4. It's just at this point it's ridiculous. And go ahead, get in the comments. Honestly, I want to hear what everybody has to say about this now. And it does now bode, and Carolina fans know, for whatever reason, that Pitt game is always a problem. And sometimes it's even worse when they come to Chapel Hill. So now you've got a massive game for that. You do have time off. You've got 3 days basically to prepare, get back home, get a rest day, prepare for that game, and play Saturday. And then you've got, in my opinion, the biggest game of the year, which is at NC State next week. Because you lose that one, you can kiss a double bye goodbye in the ACC. You're facing that right now, but if you lose to NC State and you now don't have the tiebreaker over NC State and Miami, you're not going to be able to get into it. Which is crazy because you may have beaten the 2 best teams in the ACC in Duke and Virginia. We don't know about Clemson yet. We'll find out a lot about them when they go play at Cameron on Saturday. But it's just, you're losing the games that you shouldn't be losing. It's tough, man. And even in the Virginia game, it was a horrendous first half. Now, it's a game of 2 halves, and they came back, and credit to them. And it was a huge win, just like the Duke game. Regardless of how it plays out between the 40 minutes, they still came out on top. But again, we can't just deny that and look at this team and say, well, just toss the Miami game up. Just forget the end of the Syracuse game. Just forget the West Coast trip. Just forget SMU. We can't keep just forgetting everything because they play when they want to play. And then when they play against teams that are tougher than them, that want it more than they do, they fold. They fold. That's what is happening. Anyways, please like the video, hit subscribe in your name in the portal, get in the comments, let me know what you think. As always, it is still Go Heels, but tough one tonight. Really tough one. Big week ahead for Carolina. See you on the next one.